Skin Games is a urban fantasy novel by Jim Butcher, number 15 in the Dresden Files series. Stars Harry Dresden, a Chicago wizard, kind of hard-boiled detective type who takes on cases of the supernatural bent. Is For most of this series is very much kind of a lone wolf, independent figure who, apart from his own kind of, there's a magic white council, takes on all these supernatural goodies and baddies, mostly baddies and immoral things of vampires and fairies and werewolves and all sorts of monsters and gods. And This is a series that I have been listening to because I have taken all of this in as audiobooks. All of them actually now narrated by James Marsters. Buffy's Spike. Buffy's Spike. Yes, Spike. Who does a really good job of kind of this very kind of fun, guilty pleasure for myself. Throughout the series, Harry's powers have sort of slowly increased as he's gone along. He's gotten more powerful, but Butcher is always throwing more and more threats at him. And indeed, what each novel seems to have is it's one day out of Harry's life in that particular year, which is worst day, where basically bad thing after bad thing after bad thing kind of gets slammed into him. This is very much your hard luck detective, your plucky Spider-Man type superhero who's always getting completely dumped on, getting bashed. This is like Die Hard, where, he just takes a licking and he keeps on somehow ticking and somehow powers through Volare and all that sort of stuff. It's a silly series. It's, to Butcher's credit, the mythology has kind of continually expanded and kind of gotten more and more as the series has gone along. To be fair, though, I pick these books up maybe once a year, if that. Usually, if that, and listen to them, and they're just sort of good kind of candy bar fun. I do not really have most of the mythology in my head, so I'm not one to ask for that question. Each novel is a discrete adventure, even though that they have a tendency to build upon themselves. And indeed, I think we got to number 12 changes, and that was sort of like the big events happened. And indeed, when I finally came back to Skin Games, which is number 15, I'd sort of forgotten kind of events that had happened in between 12 and 15. I find them semi-disposable that way. Butcher is a pro, though. He's great at just sort of reminding you of all the things that are happening, so you don't really need to keep much of this in your head. On the negative side, it's gotten slightly better lately, but he is very much your male gaze author. Perhaps it's because it's the hard-nosed detective kind of thing, but there's a lot of dames in these books, and we get a lot of descriptions of exactly how curvaceous all these dames, all these beautiful women are, and how they all, of course, they want Harry. So it's got that hefty good slice there of male fantasy, which sometimes is enjoyable and sometimes is just like, oh fuck, could you just drop this, dude? Could you tone it down slightly? He doesn't swear in these books. It's strangely chaste in that American way of there's no swearing. He's like hell's bells and you can count the number of times he uses that sort of stuff. There's no swearing in the book. There's lots of ogling of women and kind of implications of sexy times, but it's very chaste, and there's lots of violence, of course, because it's good detective thing. Now this particular book is a heist setup. It's a magical heist setup. He has to team up with what are basically a lot of his old villains. Primarily a Nicodemus, who has been around since the birth of Christ, is kind of a major kind of a wizard in his own right, but has also been possessed by a demon. This is the heist. They're going to burgle Hades' a bank vault to grabs some things out. And so, and because Harry, through many complicated things, is now the Winter Knight in the fairy court, Mab, the queen, has lent him out to Nicodemus for, basically some kind of a balancing of accounts, because there's always accounts to be balanced. Harry has also got what's supposedly some kind of a parasite in his head, some kind of a demonic thing inside his head that he's also battling with. He's been isolated on Demon Reach, this island, which is basically a big prison for all the horrible things, and it was holding him back, but he's been released from that to go on this heist. Now, the heist itself, because it's a magical heist, you don't really get the kind of like, oh, we're going to all the carefully laid plans. It's more like we have these people, and we think these people should get us through whatever the kind of the barrier is for each thing, which is sort of takes away the kind of the pleasure of the bank heist kind of idea of like, the carefully laid plan. But it's fun. It's fun stuff. We get a lot of the reoccurring characters in Harry Dresden novels. We get Karen Murphy, who is a police officer that he met in the very first one. Which is like which throughout this thing they've all had the, will they get together or won't they get together, and that of course continues. But Harry's still free to have lots of other different entanglements. In the book, there's Butters, Waldo Butters, who's always great for kind of the comedic relief. And indeed, we get some great Star Wars references in this book, thanks to Waldo. It is one of these books. It's not heavy on the pop culture stuff, but there's enough kind of fun pop culture stuff in here too, which is also, it's fun. It's fun. It's light. There is of course on the male gaze side, there's another kind of renegade wizard that has been pulled in, who basically gets told, she has the body of a stripper, which I'm thinking it seems to be the implications is skinny, big boobs. And of course, for some reason, when she gets to her task, she has to do it completely naked, which, it is a Dresden Files novel, and I don't know if he's gotten slightly better at kind of downplaying some of this stuff to a certain degree, or whether it's just worn me down. It is one of these books where I have a tendency to kind of, especially some of the earlier ones, I argued with them a lot. The first couple of novels were like okay, and then it started getting better and more comedic, and then it started getting a little bit kind of serious, kind of like later episodes Buffy, and I didn't like that so much. But we've seemed to have gotten over the hump with the big stuff when we're in one of those in-between novels, which are fun. It's a bank heist. It's what's on the tin there. So I don't know if that's a reaction to Harry Dresden novel. If that's it's not particularly a review. It's a fun series. If you can kind of I find people with the Harry Dresden series, it's like if you can get through the first couple of novels, and you're into kind of urban fantasy and detective fiction, and you're not you don't bounce off too much of the male gaze stuff, it is a fun series. Butcher is really good at plotting and pacing his novels. They're actually kind of long, but there's always event after event, and Harry is just this weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. He just gets punched and he bounces back up, and it's kind of all ridiculous. And he's always like, I should have saved the people, when it's like, look, yeah, okay, guilt, Harry, but we all know that, obviously you're the great guy of the book. You're the hero of the book. And I start resenting them for that. See, this is a problem. My critical brain clicks back, clicks on, and I start getting more critical of the novels. I enjoy them. They're an audiobook pleasure. James Marsters does a great job of reading them. I think if I actually had to sit down and read them, and it took me that long, it wouldn't. But when I'm in the mood, I pick one up. I listen to it, kind of binge it through. It's quick through and it's quick out again, which is always valuable in fiction, to just have that kind of a fun, it's your brain dead movie, kind of fun action movie with kind of some disreputable parts. So yes, that's my review of Skin Games by Jim Butcher. I am not damning it with faint praise. I'm damning it with just the right amount of praise. More videos later.